Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Awareness without evaluating everything. Do you want to change the world? How about beginning with yourself? How about being transformed yourself first? But how do you achieve that? Through observation, through understanding, with no interference or judgment on your part. Because what you judge, you cannot understand. When you say of someone, he's a communist, understanding has stopped at that moment. You slapped a label on him. She's a capitalist. Understanding has stopped at that moment. You slapped a label on her. And if the label carries undertones of approval or disapproval, so much the worse. How are you going to understand what you disapprove of, or what you approve of for that matter? All of this sounds like a new world, doesn't it? No judgment, no commentary, no attitude. One simply observes, one studies, one watches, without the desire to change what is. Because if you desire to change what is into what you think it should be, you no longer understand. A dog trainer attempts to understand a dog so that he can train the dog to perform certain tricks. A scientist observes the behavior of ants with no further end in view than to study ants, to learn as much as possible about them. He has no other aim. He's not attempting to train them, or get anything out of them. He's interested in ants. He wants to learn as much as possible about them. That's his attitude. The day you attain a posture like that, you will experience a miracle. You will change effortlessly, correctly. Change can happen. You will not have to bring it about. As the life of awareness settles on your darkness, whatever is evil will disappear. Whatever is good will be fostered. You will have to experience that for yourself. But this calls for a disciplined mind. And when I say disciplined, I'm not talking about effort. I'm talking about something else. Have you ever studied an athlete? His or her whole life is sports. But what a disciplined life he or she leads. And look at a river as it moves toward the sea. It creates its own banks that contain it. When there's something within you that moves in the right direction, it creates its own discipline. The moment you get bitten by the bug of awareness, oh, it's so delightful. It's the most delightful thing in the world, the most important, the most delightful. There's nothing so important in the world as awakening, nothing. And of course, it is also discipline in its own way. There's nothing so delightful as being aware. Would you rather live in darkness? Would you rather act and not be aware of your actions, talk and not be aware of your words? Would you rather listen to people and not be aware of what you're hearing? Or see things and not be aware of what you're looking at? The great Socrates said, "The unaware life is not worth living." That's a self-evident truth. Most people don't live aware lives. They live mechanical lives, mechanical thoughts, generally somebody else's, mechanical emotions, mechanical actions, mechanical reactions. Do you want to see how mechanical you really are? My, that's a lovely shirt you're wearing. You feel good hearing that. For a shirt, for heaven's sakes. You feel proud of yourself when you hear that. People come over to my center in India and they say, "What a lovely place. These lovely trees," for which I'm not responsible at all. "This lovely climate." And already I'm feeling good, until I catch myself feeling good and I say, "Hey, can you imagine anything as stupid as that?" I'm not responsible for those trees. I wasn't responsible for choosing the location. I didn't order the weather. It just happened. But me got in there. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about my culture and my nation. How stupid can you get? I mean that. I'm told my great Indian culture has produced all these mystics. I didn't produce them. I'm not responsible for them. Or they tell me, "That country of yours and its poverty, it's disgusting." I feel ashamed. But I didn't create it. What's going on? Did you ever stop to think? People tell you, "I think you're very charming." So I feel wonderful. I get a positive stroke. That's why they call it, "I'm okay, you're okay." I'm going to write a book someday, and the title will be, "I'm an ass, you're an ass." That's the most liberating, wonderful thing in the world. When you openly admit you're an ass. It's wonderful. People tell me, "You're wrong." I say, "What can you expect of an ass?" Disarmed. Everybody has to be disarmed. In the final liberation, I'm an ass, you're an ass. Normally, the way it goes, I press a button and you're up. I press another button and you're down. And you like that. How many people do you know who are unaffected by praise or blame? That isn't human, we say. Human means that you have to be a little monkey so everybody can twist your tail. And you do whatever you ought to be doing. But is that human? If you find me charming, it means that right now you're in a good mood. Nothing more. It also means that I fit your shopping list. We all carry a shopping list around. And it's as though you've got to measure up to this list. Tall, dark, handsome according to my tastes. I like the sound of his voice, you say. I'm in love. You're not in love, you silly ass. Any time you're in love, I hesitate to say this, you're being particularly asinine. Sit down and watch what's happening to you. You're running away from yourself. You want to escape. Somebody once said, "Thank God for reality and for the means to escape from it." So that's what's going on. We are so mechanical, so controlled. We write books about being controlled and how wonderful it is to be controlled and how necessary it is that people tell you you're okay. Then you'll have a good feeling about yourself. How wonderful it is to be in prison. Or, as somebody said to me yesterday, to be in your cage. Do you like being in prison? Do you like being controlled? Let me tell you something. If you ever let yourself feel good when people tell you that you're okay, you are preparing yourself to feel bad when they tell you you're not good. As long as you live to fulfill other people's expectations, you better watch what you wear, how you comb your hair, whether your shoes are polished, in short, whether you live up to every damned expectation of others. Do you call that human? This is what you'll discover when you observe yourself. You'll be horrified. The fact of the matter is that you're neither okay nor not okay. You may fit the current mood or trend or fashion. Does that mean you've become okay? Does your okayness depend on that? Does it depend on what people think of you? Jesus Christ must have been pretty not okay by those standards. You're not okay, and you're not okay. You're you. I hope that is going to be the big discovery, at least for some of you. If 3 or 4 of you make this discovery during these days we spend together, my, what a wonderful thing. Extraordinary. Cut out all the okay stuff and the not okay stuff. Cut out all the judgments and simply observe. Watch. You'll make great discoveries. These discoveries will change you. You won't have to make the slightest effort. Believe me. This reminds me of the fellow in London after the war. He's sitting with a parcel wrapped in brown paper in his lap. It's a big, heavy object. The bus conductor comes up to him and says, "What do you have there on your lap?" And the man says, "This is an unexploded bomb. We dug it out of the garden and I'm taking it to the police station." The conductor says, "You don't want to carry that on your lap. Put it under the seat." Psychology and spirituality, as we generally understand it, transfer the bomb from your lap to under your seat. They don't really solve your problems. They exchange your problems for other problems. Has that ever struck you? You had a problem, now you exchange it for another one. It's always going to be that way until we solve the problem called you. Well, there you have it. So what's this all about? Awareness without evaluating everything. Well, he starts by saying that what you judge you can't understand. Everything comes with a judgment. If you see somebody and say he's a communist, all these ideas about what a communist is come to you, and understanding has stopped at that moment. You've transferred everything. It's very funny. These days it's very, very common for everybody to say, "He's a Nazi." And then you say, "Well, what's a Nazi?" And they're like, "I don't know. But I know it's bad." They don't know what socialism means. They don't know what it means to be a socialist. Socialism, basically, in a nutshell, and there have been many books written on the subject, so this is a very, very thumbnail sketch, is when somebody sacrifices their self for the good of society. Society is the most important thing, and you're not so important. So you should sacrifice yourself and your happiness for the greater good of society, whatever that means. And people think socialism is good. Personally, I don't think socialism is good. I don't think people should go around sacrificing themselves for everybody else. I think you should have the right to live your own life and find your own happiness, and a very individual type thing, and most people would agree if I said that, but still they think they support socialism. Let other people do all the work, and then we'll just take their money and give it to each other. This person worked and we didn't, but we should benefit from this because everybody blah 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 should have these rights. Well, who's going to pay for it all? Oh, we don't know. Yeah, the workers are going to pay for everybody else. Anyway, this is the kind of nonsense people get on with without understanding. So, understanding, he says, if there's, undertones of approval or disapproval, how can you understand what you don't approve of? How can you understand what you do approve of? If you think something is terrible and you go, "Oh, he's a communist," then how are you going to understand the person? You've labeled them. You can't see anything positive now because you've labeled them with a negative label. So everything is going to be flavored by that label. And then he says, if you want to change into what you think should be, then you no longer understand. If you don't understand what you are, then how do you know what you should be or what you shouldn't be? You should be the best version of yourself. You have to understand yourself. Know thyself. He quotes Socrates by saying, the unexamined life is not worth living. Now, he quotes it as the unaware life is not worth living, but most translations of Socrates will say, or Plato, because Socrates didn't write, will say the unexamined life is not worth living, which, translated from Greek, I'd say you could translate it either way. Anyway, he says, if you're a dog trainer and you're studying the dog so that you can manipulate the dog and teach it tricks, that's very different from the scientist who studies ants and just watches the ants and wants to learn and understand ants as they are and not as he wants them to be. And he talks about discipline and how the river makes its own banks as it makes its way to the sea. So every river wants to go to the sea. And as it moves, it very slowly carves the stone and creates riverbanks, which makes it easier. It's like walking the path in the grass. First, you're walking in the heavy grass. You might need a machete and you got to chop this grass. You walk it more and more, and your footfalls will eventually put a path in the grass. And then eventually the path will kill the sod and it'll be a dirt path, and this will get wider and wider. And this is how most roads in most countries are made, just the paths made by moose or deer or cows or whatever. Mostly herd animals, where there's lots of these animals moving through, like caribou, where they have herds of 30,000 plus caribou walking pretty much in a straight line. They'll create a herd, and this is like a habit. A habit is like the path in the grass, and this is the discipline of the athlete. Every day it's like laying down a thread. Every day you lay down a thread, and day after day after day, this thread becomes thicker and thicker. It becomes a string, and then it becomes a cord, and then it becomes a rope, and then it becomes a cable. And then you can't break this cable. And when you try to break a bad habit, it's the same. It's like you have to break one thread at a time. And it seems like it's going to take forever to break this habit because you have this big cable that you could tow a train or you could tow a ship with this cable. But if you break one fiber at a time, it's like the prisoner in a prison scratching the wall with a spoon one day at a time. After many, many, many days, you'll escape. In many, many, many days, you'll break the cable that holds you. Anyway, this video is getting quite long. I didn't expect it to be this long. There's more to say about this, but we'll get to these topics as we move through the book. And if you get your own copy of this book, I'm sure you'll have other things to say about it. But for now, we'll stop. So who loves you, baby? This guy, don't forget it. If you're going through tough times, hang in there. I hope you enjoy spending some time with me. I enjoy spending time with you. Remember, somebody out there, you're their favorite person. Probably me. And anyway, till next time, love you. Goodbye.